The COVID-19 pandemic has accentuated and accelerated the need for digital transformation and upskilling initiatives that are aimed at improving internal processes and customer engagement. According to a report by PWC CEOs, that financial services firms need to consider building the right skills for their organizations to compete in the future. However, the need to create jobs for the young people is key to alleviating poverty. To talk to us about this, we now speak to Tashmia Ismail, who joins me now live via Skype. Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us here on the SABC News channel.
Thank you for having us.
Now, are there programs that can lead to greater innovation and perhaps accelerated digital transformation in companies?
What the Youth Employment Service has done is, of the youth that are placed around the country, every young person gets a smartphone. And on the smartphone are 2 zero-rated applications. This means that youth using these applications don't pay for any data. And what we have there is a survey tool, and we have a training curriculum, professional skills, personal financial management, really teaching youth how to engage in the workplace through videos, through animations. So it's multimedia, it's very media rich, and youth learn through storytelling. So I think there are 2 ways in which companies can really innovate around this, which is making cheap access for young people to be able to work from home, because a lot of young people can't do this just because of the cost of data. So zero rating your corporate communication pieces is really important. And the second is using things like digital training tools that are media rich, because youth learn really well. And we've just completed a survey with our youth during lockdown, and we've got over 3,000 responses. So it just shows how agile these technologically enabled models are in allowing you to keep in touch with your workforce wherever they are in the country. And we've got 37,000 youth, in fact it's more than that now, placed in businesses all over the country, in rural communities and in townships. So it really is proving to be the way to go, is to technologically on a platform connect with your employees.
All right, so share with us the details of that survey. Quite interesting what you're telling us. So I suppose basically what you're saying is that more people, young people, are able to sort of adapt to the new normal?
Well, actually, the survey is saying to us that 67% of youth are really battling. They're struggling to adapt. They're showing signs of depression and anxiety. 2 out of 3 of the youth that responded were saying that they really are feeling like they're battling depression at this point. What was also very interesting that came back in the data is 65% of these young people are also saying they're spending a huge amount of proportion of their salaries on data to be able to stay connected. So their spending on food and data seems to have gone up. Rather troubling for us is that over 85% of our youth have said with that Yes for Youth salary that they're getting from companies, they've had to start supporting additional household members, neighbors, family, and friends on that salary, because over 40% of them have shown household income has dropped during this time, with family members, etc., not being able to get to work or having lost their jobs. So you know, the overall summary is this has taken a toll on youth households, and generally we see that youth are they've always borne the brunt of recession and economic downturn, and they seem to be bearing the brunt of the COVID impacts also.
If you have 67% still battling and struggling to adapt to the new normal, what are companies doing in terms of perhaps improving workers' and leaders' knowledge of technology and perhaps its implications in production?
Yeah, we've seen an absolute explosion in the number of webinars and courses teaching companies how to work with their employees in a virtual world. And, you know, this is so dependent on the resources of a company. If you're a company that has great resources, you can afford to get your employees laptops and data and help them to connect. But if you're a smaller business, getting the data and the hardware to your employees is much more difficult. So I'm afraid that the technology piece really is, we see the division, the inequalities in our country very clearly on those who are able to switch to virtual and those who aren't. But your question is really great, because I don't think it's only about learning how to work remotely that companies need to switch. There's a big piece of this, which is how do we help with the psychology and the anxiety of COVID, because we're seeing that the psychological impacts on employees is as big or as important to manage. People all around you are losing their jobs. You may have had your hours cut. Some people can't even access their jobs. So this psychological management, I think, is going to be as important for companies going forward. And maybe bringing breathing techniques and mindfulness exercises into the workplace and delivering these virtually, just to help employees to cope.
Just in conclusion, so one other concern is the mismatch of skills in various departments, and how are companies dealing with this, and also with reducing skills gaps that exists?
Again, we do see a skills mismatch. I think that's one of the tragedies of the South African economy, is we've got one part of the economy that is very first world, very sophisticated, looking for high skills levels, people who are problem solvers and analytical. And we've got, if you look at the pool of the unemployed in South Africa, we have 54% of young people in the pool of the unemployed that don't even have a matric certificate. So there's an absolute mismatch between the supply and the demand. What we can see is some of the programs that the Youth Employment Service has, one of them is running in Tembisa through IT Varsity, is you can skill youth quite quickly. We've had young people off the street who've entered into classes and within a few months are able to do app development, coding, website development, etc. So we do need to do better matches of what the private sector and the first economy is demanding and how we're preparing young people to be able to enter that world. The one good thing is that access to those types of courses, if we can get cheaper data, is that we can start to skill up and reduce those mismatches through digital channels. Digital training is really going to take off in this post-COVID world, and it's our best bet to try to skill our youth up so that they can better fit into the demand side of the economy.
All right, that's where we'll leave it. We thank you so much for your time. Tashmia Ismail Saville, he is CEO of the Youth Employment Service, talking to us about the upskilling of the young people in order to create employment in the midst of this COVID-19. A quick ad break, still more to come. Do stay with us.